Well, hey there, happy innovators. How y'all doing? How are you doing? Long time no podcast, but who cares, right? I mean, really, how many people really care whether I put out a podcast or not? I don't know. But I care, so I guess that's really, in the end, all that really matters, right? Like the sound of my own voice or something. But, so how you been? How's life treating you post-COVID? You know, this is the post-COVID world that we're living in now. Actually, it's not quite that way for everybody. I know there's a lot of people that are, happy and, really rejoicing over the fact that they don't have to wear a mask anymore. And I don't know what it's like where you're at, but here, stateside, especially in Massachusetts, it's been really pleasant. We are back to normal here. So there's really no restrictions. And, people are just so happy. At least most people are. But what I'm kind of seeing and I guess discovering really is that even though all the restrictions have been lifted, like even though people don't have to wear a mask anymore, there's still this contingency of people that just refuse to let COVID go. I mean, they're obsessed with it, almost as if they need it. I'm not quite sure why. I've thought about it quite a bit, tried to figure out what that all means, but it's really strange and really kind of, I guess, concerning a little bit about the future, at least, and like just how weird it is that some people seem to need to have like the crisis of COVID in their lives. And I'm not one of them, but a lot of the people that I'm talking about, it's not like they're stupid people or something. I'm talking about people that are highly educated, very intelligent people, and they are just so, I don't know what's the word. They are so reluctant to go back to normal existence that they go so far as to get kind of like accusatory and, angry with people that, are not wearing a mask and they're back to normal. They just will not accept that COVID or the COVID restrictions have been lifted. And it's really weird. I don't want to talk about it all day long, but really it's at the forefront of everything right now. I mean, it's, everywhere you look, well, just like over the past year and a half, really. I mean, everywhere you went, everywhere you looked, every TV show or channel or program or YouTube video you watch, everything seems to be, in some way, affected by COVID, and people talking about COVID and the results, of an existence under COVID restrictions, But how odd, how strange that there's this contingency of people that just refuse to let it go. And I don't know, I kind of predict, for whatever my predictions are worth, I kind of predict that Dr. Fauci is going to be like the fall guy. After all is said and done, like they're going to just kind of nail that guy. He'll be the scapegoat, for all things that went wrong with COVID or during COVID or whatever. I called it from day one. As soon as that guy stepped up, I'm like, he's the one. He's the one that's going to just get nailed. When this is over, they're going to go after him. And I kind of think that's already started. I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that's happening. And what a strange set of circumstances we find ourselves in here in the U.S., politically and, oh boy, you'd think that once COVID is over, that things would just kind of snap back to the way they were. And for the most part, I think that's how it is. But boy, we sure seem to have a lot to kind of like overcome in the next few months. And this contingency of people that refuse to let COVID go, man, I worry for them. I worry for us because of them. So we'll see how all that pans out. We'll be living it. It's not something that we'll be able to avoid. But how are you doing in this post-COVID world we're in? How are you doing? How's life been? Are things getting back to normal for you? And if not, I guess I feel sorry for you and be praying for you that you get back to normal, wherever you are in the world. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. So, anyway, what have I been up to? Well, a whole lot of music. Got some new songs coming down the pike. Some pretty good ones, too, I think. Ones that will, be pleasing. I think that last one I released, the Mapping in the Stars, I think that went over pretty well. Seems to be getting a lot of traction, and people seem to be liking that sound, kind of breaking away from the heavier stuff a little bit. I kind of felt like it was time for that. Like I feel anyway that, over the past year or so since I've been releasing new material, I kind of feel like I've demonstrated that I can do the heavy thing, pretty good. And now it's time to kind of like, demonstrate that I'm able to kind of stretch out a little bit and to, like soften things up a little bit, get a little more atmospheric, a little more emotional, with the songs. So stay tuned for what I have coming. I promise you that you won't have to wait too much longer. But man, have I been busy with the music thing. I've got some new equipment, like I mentioned a couple months back, and it's like a playground, being able to have new tools to work with in the studio. It changes everything for me. I guess I've always been kind of like one of those musicians that's like equipment driven, and what do I mean by that? Well, let me explain it to you this way. Like, I'm a drummer, right? So I have a drum set that I bought, and I have also just recently acquired an electronic drum set. So depending on what I'm sitting behind and like what I'm playing on, my playing will be different. Like if I go to a music store where they have several drum sets set up and they're all different, like when I sit down behind each drum set, what comes out of me is like very different depending on the drum configuration or whatever. And the same goes for like anything else. Like if I sit behind a keyboard or if I sit behind a piano, there's a difference between sitting behind a synthesizer and a real piano. So I'll play differently, or with a guitar, I play differently on an acoustic than I do on an electric. And depending on the guitar, it could be, a different kind of electric guitar with a different kind of amp and different kind of effects. What I play is different, You probably know what I mean, especially if you're a player and everything. It depends on the equipment, right? I mean, a lot of it comes from obviously inside of me and my technique or my lack of technique or whatever. But I don't know. So that's why I've been having fun in my studio, just kind of messing around with new stuff and coming up with new sounds and new ideas. And obviously not doing too many podcasts, sorry about that. But I wonder if you've missed me. Probably not, right? Probably not. I don't know. It's been a while. I think I kind of felt a little bit guilty. That happens. I feel guilty that I, have neglected the Singularity podcast after a while. And got to kind of force myself sometimes to sit down and talk. Even if I don't have anything to really talk about, like today. I don't really have a whole lot to talk about, but I did have this idea, this topic I wanted to talk about today. Just recently, actually, I found out about this thing. And now, to me, this was new, but to the rest of the world, it's probably an old thing. But I came across this video on YouTube of these people that are creating poster art. They're making poster art for movies that have been released, or movies that are old, but they're a fan of the movie. They liked the movie, so they decide to design their own poster art for the movie. And there's a whole market for this kind of thing. And while that may not sound like a very big deal to most people, okay, I see it as a major shift in popular culture, okay? A pretty important one too, because I don't know whether you know this or not, but I'm a Creative Commons artist, and I believe in this idea wholeheartedly of open source kind of music and licensing and publishing. I like the idea of sharing art and creativity freely all across the board. So whether it's graphic art, music, videos, all those kinds of things, I am an advocate of, making that kind of thing available for free and, for use without retribution, So I know for a fact that most of you know that already about me, that my music is available for free. You can use it in your videos and you won't get sued. You just got to attribute me. You just got to give me credit. It's not a big deal. And I think that with this poster art idea, although they're not giving it away for free, it's causing a bit of a ruckus in the film industry because, there are these companies that hold the rights to these major films, and these people that are releasing their own artwork, for that film that's owned by Warner Brothers or, Miramax Films or something, whatever, Orion Films, whoever owns the rights to the film, they're having this big problem with these average, ordinary people, outside of the industry, kind of creating this cottage industry around these films that they own the rights to. And, there's people getting sued, and there's all kinds of money problems and licensing issues and whatever. But it doesn't really matter, to me, okay? That doesn't matter. It's still a really important change in the film industry. This idea that the audience kind of takes ownership, after a while anyway, of the popular culture, and the film may be owned by, a major film company, but at some point, really, it can be argued that the movies, especially those films that are massively popular, like Star Wars or Psycho or any Alfred Hitchcock film or something, the audience at some point, kind of takes ownership. Those films are so big and the culture is so inundated with them that they kind of, in some ways, maybe can belong to the public domain. I mean, it can be argued, you know? And while Warner Brothers may have a problem with, you know, some guy making a poster, you know, for a film that came out, you know, 10 or 20 years ago that they own, you know, I think it's kind of like it's, you know, it's a trend. It's something to pay attention to because really it's the beginning of something that we haven't seen before, you know, where the fan base is so loyal and so rabid about a specific thing that they start to make their own product, you know, their own expression, you know, of the film or of the group or of the album. They start to make their own. And I think that's absolutely fascinating that it's happening, but it's also equally as fascinating to me that those posters and things like that are becoming, you know, collectible, and they have their own market, and people are buying these posters regardless of whether the film studios want them to or not. It doesn't matter. Like, it's, you know, using something like Star Wars as an example. I mean, it's such a huge film. You know, do you remember, was it like 1977 or 1978 when Star Wars first came out? You know, I do. I was about 6 or 7 years old, and it was huge, man. You know, even back then. And that film has just continued to grow in popularity. And I'm not even talking about the sequels and all that kind of stuff, like the franchise that Star Wars became. I'm talking about the first film, Star Wars. You know, the one with Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 when it all got started. That film, I mean, yeah, it might be owned by Lucasfilms or whatever, but I don't know, like at some point it becomes so massive that, in my opinion, it kind of is no longer the property, the sole property, I should say, of Lucasfilms. I think it's like, at this point, it's part of American culture. And whether Lucasfilms likes it or not, I mean, that was the idea, right? And that's something I never quite really understood, really, like, you know, ever since the advent of like the MP3, okay? Jumping over to the music thing, okay? You know, this idea of music being pirated, you know, or, you know, people burning their own MP3 versions of albums and trading them amongst their friends or whatever, you know. Of course, as we all know how that turned out and how a lot of people got into trouble, and really subsequently it was really, for the most part, the death knell of the music industry and record companies as we knew them. And now, as the net result of all that, we have, you know, very limited number of record companies, major ones anyway, and you know, there's really no stopping it. Like, once the genie is out of the bottle, there's really no way to put it back in, you know? And with this movie poster thing and with films and all that, I kind of see it really the same way. It's like, yeah, you can try to control, you know, what people are doing with the name and the images of these things, but, you know, it's really kind of moot. You know, it's futile. Like, what's the point? Like, you film a video for a song, you know, like, what's that one song? It was Boys of Summer by Don Henley. You know, I love that song, and I watch a lot of YouTube Okay. And a lot of the time I'm listening to songs that I like, and it just drove me absolutely crazy. Every time I wanted to hear The Boys of Summer by Don Henley, there was some kind of block on the video or some kind of problem, like some kind of hassle and lawsuit. So, you can't just hear the song, but and watch the video, But to me, that just seems like so stupid. Like, you filmed the video back in what, like 1983 or 85 or something? I forget when it was, but you spent the money on the video, right, to promote the album and the song. Don Henley's building the perfect Beast album, and here's the first single, The Boys of Summer, and here's the video to promote, and you spent a lot of money on that promotion, as a record company. I get it, it was a lot of money, but didn't you make your money back? Like, didn't the video pay for itself with record sales back in the day? I mean, didn't you already make the money you needed? So now the video for Boys of Summer, right, by Don Henley, is really kind of like a free commercial for that album and for that song. Like, you already made the money off the video, so why don't you just let everybody watch the video for free, and maybe somebody new, some new young kid hearing it for the first time will love the song, love the video, and buy the album or buy the song. Maybe that'll happen. You'll find a new fan, because of this old video you shot back in the day, but no, that's not how it goes. There's got to be a lawsuit and blah, 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 blah. But to me, it just seems so stupid. It seems counterintuitive and counterproductive. It doesn't make any sense, And this is coming from an artist who, lets everyone use their music for free. So I probably am the wrong person to be, voicing my opinion about it. But to me, it just seems like so stupid. Like, it's such a bad idea to give anybody a hard time for, listening to your song. It's like, you should be thanking your lucky stars that someone even cares enough to listen, Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Do you agree with me on this? I'm sure you probably do. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have no problem giving my stuff away for free, let people use it or whatever, because I listen to a lot of stuff for free. I like that. I think it's one of the best things about the internet and, the modern technology is that we can listen to old songs from a long time ago. You can think of anything now. With YouTube, you can think of absolutely any song from any era at any time, type it in and you'll find it, and all you young kids out there that are, used to that, that's all you've ever known. Let me tell you, for an old fart like me, man, that's like awesome. It is so awesome to just think of anything, any song from my past, no matter how obscure, type it in and find it, Like, what was it? I looked up the Alex Harvey Band, the song Faith Healer. I love that song. And the video is just totally awesome, like totally weird, and, totally had as an influence on Pipe Choir. I mean, if you watch the video, you see the guy with the makeup on his face. I mean, come on, influencing a whole new generation, 20 years after the song was written and after the video was made, just because it's there and it's available. And I happened to remember it one day and I typed it in and there it was, that's totally awesome. It wasn't always that way, and I remember the time when it wasn't that way, I'm sure a lot of my happy innovators remember those times too, because you're probably, somewhere around my age. So, we were born at this time where we were really born at the right place at the right time. We kind of were straddling the 70s and 80s, the me generation, and the age of technology, the age of information, the age of infotech and all that. Like, we were kind of like right at the time the 8-track was around and vinyl was going strong, but the compact disc was being introduced and computers and all that. Like, we were straddling both worlds, by being born in the 70s, or the 80s, or, whatever. So it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of cool, I think anyway, to be the age I am right now and watching how things have changed and watching how things continue to change. This poster idea for the movie thing is just another layer, another example of that change. I mean, when you think about it, and I've been talking about it a lot over the past couple podcasts, like the idea of the music that we grew up with being like really special, like we were born at this time. If you were born in the 70s like I was, we were born at this time where music was just fantastic, and you can go back and listen, and it's just decade after decade, from like 1970, 80, 1990, the 2000s, wow. I mean, what a great time for film, for movies, for painting, right? Fine art, all kinds of stuff. Television, the way television has evolved, and, programming. It's amazing. And then the advent of YouTube, like, oh my gosh, it changed absolutely everything. I mean, the majority of the people that I know now are really kind of tuning out of television, and they're tuning into their computers and YouTube, and not even on a computer, it's on their phone. It's so amazing when you really stop to take a look at everything and to think about how much things have changed and how much they continue to change, and I don't know, some people don't like change. I get that, because I'm that way sometimes too. I want some things to kind of stay the same, but I don't know, at this point, really, with the way the world is going and everything, it's like trying to turn the tide back with a Dixie cup. Good luck. It ain't gonna happen. So, I suggest we embrace it, this change that's coming and all the changes that have happened, over the past couple decades. It's amazing. It's amazing the world we live in. My dad and I, actually, my father and I were on the phone, having a long conversation the other day, and we were talking about that, because my father was born in like the 30s, and we had this really long conversation. It was actually kind of nice, like, I don't know if you have parents, they're still around or whatever, but did you ever have like a really long talk with your parents about the world and about life and all that kind of stuff? Did you ever do that? My dad and I talk a lot, and we usually are joking around and goofing around, but we really kind of got down to brass tacks. We talked about everything, and he was kind of telling me his opinion of how things have changed and what he sees, and over the years, and all the presidents he lived through, and all the experiences, and Kennedy being shot and all that kind of stuff. Everything, you name it. The wall coming down. My father, has a long memory and has lived a lot of life, and what a fascinating conversation, to get into with my dad. It's like, it's the kind of thing that we don't really have the time to talk about, like on an average everyday situation. Like, we're usually, busy, and he's busy, I'm busy. So we talk, we say hello, how you doing? Kind of check in with each other. But, when was the last time you really sat down and had a heart to heart with your parents, or with the people around you, I kind of, that's a kind of a good question, I think. Isn't it? It's an important part of our lives, like talking to the people that are around us. It was like one of the things that sucked about COVID and wearing a mask, and it drove me crazy. Like, I don't know about you, but it did. It drove me crazy. Like, not being able to see people's faces, like not being able to connect at all with anybody. Like, it was like this weird kind of separation, just having a mask over your face, not being able to see if someone is smiling at you, to kind of like read their expression. It was really, really weird, especially towards the end, like the last couple months before COVID ended here. It was like really frustrating sometimes to be in conversation with somebody and not being able to read the expression on their face while they're talking. I mean, it's so important to communication, and I don't think we even realize that until something like wearing a mask becomes mandatory, And I know the other day, my wife and I went to the grocery store for the first time since COVID ended here in Massachusetts. And the people in the grocery store were not wearing masks. And I swear to you, the vibe in that place was so happy. I mean, we're just at the grocery store, to buy like vegetables or something. And people were so friendly and so happy to be free, to be free of having to wear a mask and, having to social distance from each other and all that bullshit that we had to do. It's like to be free and to just be normal, just to be friendly, and communicate. And it was so strange, but it was great. Everybody was so happy, my wife and I included. It's like, finally, we're getting back to what we used to have, and the Bruins were in the playoffs, the hockey team here in Massachusetts, the Boston Bruins. They had made it to the playoffs, and for like the first game of the playoffs, or one of them anyway, they had a full capacity crowd, and the place was just explosive with joy and happiness, like tears of joy that there are finally, crowds again, large gatherings of people without any kind of controversy or baloney or whatever, and I know maybe you feel the same way where you're at, like we're getting back to what we used to have, and did I miss it? I spend a lot of time in my studio. I spend a lot of time alone. So, I relish the opportunity to talk to people and to get out and do stuff and all that. And it's just been so wonderful. That cloud of like, darkness and depression that had kind of been floating over our communities for the past year and a half is just gradually lifting. The world begins to thaw, from the long, cold winter. And, here we are. And you know what? Like I said, mark my words, Dr. Fauci, that guy, he's gonna carry all the blame, for all the stuff and all the shenanigans and BS that we've had to put up with. But it's probably unfair. He probably is not solely responsible for these problems that we're having, but he's gonna probably, at least in my best estimation, he's gonna be the guy who pays the price, and everybody else will walk. But that's the world we live in. They're gonna cancel Fauci, this cancel culture. He's probably next. And for that reason, I feel sorry for the guy. But I got to admit, it's been a relief to get back to normal, feeling normal again. And just when summer's coming too, the seasons have changed here, and it's like, oh, the weather's great. People are out and about and back to the way things used to be. And I guess there's really not much to say today. I don't really have too much to talk about. Obviously, you can tell. I meandered a little bit, but it was time. It was time to do a podcast. And now it's time for me to let you go and get back to recording some music and everything. But I hope that wherever you are, all you happy innovators that are listening to this, that are kind enough and taking the time to listen to my podcast, I just want you to know that I hope that you are having a great life. Things are getting back to normal for you. And, I hope that you are going to have a great summer, and have some fun. Get out and have some fun and be around people. Get back to normal, I really sincerely hope that that's the case for all y'all out there listening. So, my happy innovators, my good friends, my good and loyal listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. Have fun, be safe. And until next time, folks, this is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy, everybody. Okay, all you happy innovators that were cool enough to hang around to the end of the podcast today. What I'm going to share with you today is a song I have called The Argument. It was a song that was originally written probably back around 2012. But, recently I had remixed it and made a new video for it and everything. And I'm going to share it with you today because I was listening to it, watching the video, I guess, not too long ago. And I was really kind of taken aback by the energy of the song, and I kind of forget sometimes, it's like, I'm so busy and so wrapped up, making something new. I forget where I've been and what I've done. And, every once in a while I'll press play on something old. And, sometimes I'm disappointed and sometimes I'm not. And this is one of those times when I wasn't disappointed, and especially the drums in this song. I'm like, how that kick drum I have going in this song is like that subatomic kick drum that I've been searching for, for decades, like trying to get my drums to sound like that. And with this mix, with this song, I finally got there. Big fat snare, big kick drum, like slamming drums, and trust me, it took me a long time to dial that in, get to that sound that you hear now on the Pipe Choir recordings. Like I worked so hard for so long, trial and error, for for a long time trying to get the right formula, the right recipe for my drum sound. And oh boy, I'd say, really with that song I have, Sister Wind, that new version of it that I put out not too long ago, that was the arrival, of the drum sound that I'd been searching for all my life. But in this song, the argument, it's a little bit older mix, but I had dialed the kick drum in on this one. And tell me what you think. Maybe you agree. And it's a banger, I'll tell you. I'm proud of this one. I like it. So without further ado, The Argument by Pipe Choir. Peace out, everybody. Be safe and have fun. Talk to you soon.
Transmitting through space while my comets are colliding with those planets behind your eyes. I'm a prodigal son, a 0 and a 1, a candle in the night for you, a sword and flashlight. Heaven knows we're going to the places where the moon